why we need to pay attention in business in every category is because the fastest growing segment of entrepreneurship and business owners is actually women.
Suneera Madhani.
Suneera Madhani is the trailblazing founder of Worth AI, a revolutionary platform using patent-pending AI to level the playing field for small businesses seeking access to capital.
She's been recognized as Fortune's 40 Under 40, EY's Entrepreneur of the Year, and one of Entrepreneur Magazine's 100 Most Influential Women.
All right, listeners, welcome to the Business Method Podcast. I am excited for today's guest, and I'll tell you why right now. Today's guest is a true powerhouse in the world of entrepreneurship, FinTech, and women's leadership. Suneera Madhani is the trailblazing founder of Worth AI, a revolutionary platform using patent-pending AI to level the playing field for small businesses seeking access to capital. Genius idea. Before that, she founded Stax Payments, turning an idea into a multi-billion-dollar company with over $140 million in recurring revenue, and becoming one of the first female CEOs to build a unicorn multi-billion-dollar company. She's recognized as Fortune's 40 Under 40, EY's Entrepreneur of the Year, and one of Entrepreneur Magazine's 100 Most Influential Women. But what makes her story truly remarkable is that she is a thorough entrepreneur, starting from nearly nothing, you could say, to building this multi-billion-dollar company and working on her second. She started her empire from the ground up, literally selling credit card machines out of the trunk of a Volkswagen Beetle, only to be laughed out of the boardroom before proving every doubter wrong. And today, she's an angel investor advisor to over a dozen boards and a sought-after speaker who has taken a stage at Meta, Harvard Business School, South by Southwest, and beyond. So from bootstrapping to billion-dollar exits, fighting biases in business, and balancing success with family life, this is going to be a thoroughly inspiring conversation. Suneera, welcome to the show.
Oh, Chris, thank you so much for having me. That was such a sweet intro. I appreciate it. It's been 1 billion was the last company, a little over 1 billion. But I'm working on the second one. So hopefully we'll add that billions soon.
Exactly. That's what's exciting is, and I definitely want to dig into it, but we're not going to quite yet. But there's a science, and more people are figuring it out to build a billion-dollar company. And a lot of people, not a lot of people, but smart individuals like yourself are figuring out how to do it a second time. And I want to talk more about that. But first, we have to go back to kind of the early days. I think this is really cool. I used to sell books door to door, educational resources, and it was one of the scrappiest summers of my life. I cried, I bled, I got chased by dogs, I did all the things. And you were doing this. You were selling out of your credit card processors, right? Out of the back of your car.
Yeah. I mean, it was a different time, I would say, too, when I really feel so grateful for the sales experience, like actually having door-to-door sales experience. It just doesn't exist anymore because now you've got so much digital support in sales. But this was, early, 2009s to, it wasn't even that long ago. So like 16 years ago, right? So not that long ago, but how, payment, credit card processing companies, like I was working for one, and how we connected with our customers, we were assigned territories. So we're physically assigned territories, and I was responsible to go gain market share within my territory. And how I would do that was to set up appointments, right? Which we did have Google. So I would try to set up appointments, but these business owners, these small business owners, they weren't like, they were operating and running the business. So the best way to get in front of them was actually just to kind of show up. And I would go drive around, and I'd go to these plazas, and I would literally just walk around to say, who can I get a meeting with today, or get 5 minutes of attention to then book my actual next meeting of their time. But you would get, straight, it was, it takes a lot of like thick skin to be able to walk in and someone's like, no, not right now, or I'm busy, or, just to be rejected, but being rejected to your face. Like now there's cold calling, or there's always cold calling, but to be able to like, SDRs are able to like dial, and it is still hard to, to be rejected and like quickly move on to the next sale or to the next customer. you hit up a plaza, you had like 12 conversations. You're like hoping to go get one. So it's like then I'd have to drive up to the next one, right? And so it's
Yeah.
not the same, but I'm so grateful that that was my experience. That's how I got started. It taught me so much. And I just feel so grateful for it. It wasn't easy, but that is how I began my journey.
What's the harshest or most impactful rejection that you had? Do you remember? Because I remember mine. I want to share mine when you've got yours.
Yeah, I mean, I would say the one that, really changed my career was the company that I was working for. I had the idea to
Mm,
create, I was meeting all these business owners. I had my territory. I was working in payments for a little over 18 months, almost 2 years. And I was like, why isn't there more than it was just so commoditized? I had the idea to do a subscription-based payment processing network and where we, didn't charge all the fees that we did and all of the hands that it exchanged. I'm like, why isn't anybody going direct to Visa, MasterCard to go strike these deals and to go give that transparently to small businesses? And instead of the percentage here and the transaction fees there, just charge a flat monthly subscription and have it based on volume. So a tiered model. I thought it was
yes.
so simple. I thought it would be really revolutionary and that they'd save a ton of money, but it'd be really transparent and easy to understand. And that's where like the market would want to be. So I pitched this idea to my bosses. I secured a meeting with our headquarters. I, was really great at getting in the right rooms. That's something that I feel like is a superpower of mine. I got in the right room. I set up the meeting. I gave the best presentation of my life.
Mm.
And that rejection was
Ah,
probably the most impactful and influential rejection that I've ever had because I got told, no, this idea would never work. I got told, no, I'm not going to be able to scale it or do it. Who am I to be able to go change the way business has been done for 40 plus years in the financial services realm? This is just not how it's done, little girl who is 25 with big ideas. How are you going to go fund this? We're not going to go support this. And so it was all of this rejection. And I had the business plan thought out. This is how our company was going to go do this. And I had no desire even to go start it for myself. I just came up with this thing that I thought would be really great for my company. And when I got rejected, I went home in absolute shambles, right? Like when you like put on a brave face, but as soon as that meeting was over, I'm in like full tears in the bathroom, like trying to get myself together to get on this flight to go home. And I share it with my family who are so excited for me. And, we're like, this is going to be amazing. And I share that I was rejected and that it wasn't going to work. And my dad looks to me and he's like, well, Sonny, it's my nickname. He's like,
uh-huh.
well, why don't you go start the payments company? Why do you need them to go do this? And I'm like, Dad, where do I go find Mr. Visa? Like, how do I go start a financial services company? And that was the first time I had even considered, like, why not go
Yeah.
give this a try again? There's 10 years later, ended up, building this company, selling the company, scaling the company. I did it with my brother, which was it's a whole other story. And it's so exciting, who happened to also be there at that dinner table that day. But that is the most important rejection. And if I didn't have it, then maybe I'd be working still for
I
that
know.
company making billions of dollars.
Yeah, and it's much better that you make the money instead of them because they they don't deserve it after that rejection. Uh, um, but it was what's fantastic about this story is that you're at that point, and I imagine you felt like it was a significantly low point of your life. And then you decided to scrape together from family and friends $50,000 in startup costs, right? And how long was that after that board meeting rejection?
I think that was in 2012, and I got Fat Merchant was the name of the company when I started. Eventually rebranded to Stax, but Fat Merchant was fantastic. It was an awesome, like it was an acronym. It stood for Fast Affordable Transaction Technology, and it
Okay.
was everything that I needed to get started. And I didn't know I could build $1 million business, let alone $1 billion one. Like it was
Yeah.
just to go do this thing. And within 6 months, we got incorporated with Visa, MasterCard. within 1 year, we had customers, I had a CTO, we had a small team, but we were, in venture plan competitions, now starting about, talking about scaling and, accessing more capital to scale, and had like our first 100 customers, I would say, within that first year, and about 5 million in payment volume. So we had a prototype, we had an MVP, we had an invoicing platform. So we built, meaningful tech enough to go out and sell it within that first year. So we made a lot of progress in a short amount of time from that 2012 rejection to really, I would say, end of 2013 was all of that progress.
Okay, that makes sense. And then it grew really rapidly. Like within 6 months or so, you had $5 million in payments happening.
Yeah, we doubled revenue year over year. So we went from 2 million, and we had a subscription fee, right? So it was flat subscription. So it was a
What was the
SaaS.
subscription fee? Just curious.
I think at the time, if I remember our early days, I think it was like $59
That's
to
amazing.
$99. And then
Yeah.
towards our, then we scaled our subscription as well. We added products, and it wasn't unlimited volume. Like when you start, you kind of have to go, it's, understanding the market, and you kind of always underprice yourself when you're new in the market. And so it was 1 million in revenue our first year, 1 to 2 million, 2 to 7 million in year 3, 7 to 14, and then 14 to 20, and then 20 to 40 and 100 and 104. Like it just scaled. And it was incredible, and it was not easy. So it's funny now to go onto these, like to go onto podcasts and to share the story, or to kind of recap a 10-year journey in a 30-minute episode. It was a lot of, blood, sweat, tears. Were, even just so many failures along the way to go create the machine.
Yeah.
But it was a big growth ride. And it was organic. And we got investors, and then we scaled our, sales teams and our digital marketing. So we were one of the first to go online to go sell payment processing. So we had Stripe and Square and just a handful of others. But we were focused on certain verticals. So we created some really meaningful IP and really incredible tech where, it was where you could start a transaction and end a transaction anywhere under a single API. So not trying to get too technical, but like a dentist office where you like pay a copay, and then your kids, like your bill comes later and it's in like installments, but that didn't exist. Like we had Stripe that was focusing on like the, back office transactions, and you had Square that was this in-person tech, but nobody that was bridging where you had to take a transaction in person and then set up recurring in the back, or like your lawn care. You set up a transaction, or you take some money up front, but you need that card tokenized to carry it on. So we built very significant IP around that. And then we went after specific verticals that was not in person, and that was not only online. So we didn't focus on just e-commerce, and we didn't focus on where Square was focused for restaurant and point of sale. We were focused on like healthcare and professional services. And so that's where we really just nailed just focused our product to go build towards these verticals. We had such incredible pricing that was really novel and like was disruptive, but you can't just build a business just on pricing. You have to have really great products around it. And so we just built unbelievable technology, and we scaled in a way that didn't require humans. So financial services, I was one of those humans that we had territories and we were in person, and it was door to door, or we were selling through banks and partners. We flipped the script to say digital is where people are going to be at. And so how do we meet them online? And so we acquired share of space through thought leadership and through educating business owners and being at conferences for our verticals. And so we really scaled through a digital marketing approach, and it was very scalable. So that was that decade journey. And we went from a team of just myself and my brother to 400 team members. We did multiple acquisitions. We raised over 250 million in venture capital from series like our C to A to B to Series C to Series D, and scaled the business and eventually sold it to private equity north of $1 billion.
Yeah, it's amazing. I'm curious, like so on the podcast now we're interviewing $1 billion founders, and we've interviewed about 30. And I learn a lot from each one that I interview, but I'm finding a pattern that these individuals like yourself are really good at picking winning ideas and finding those starving markets where there's a need and you can really grow and scale a business. It may not be a billion-dollar company, it could be mid seven figures or eight or whatever, but these winning ideas. And I'm curious if you have had ideas before in the past, before Stax, that you thought were really winning ideas and or more ideas during your time with Stax that you thought really the market needed. And the second question to that is, how could other people find those winning ideas?
Yeah, that's a really great question. I think entrepreneurs have ideas all the time. I think
Hmm.
those winning ideas, I think I have definitely many winning ideas. I had winning ideas. This was probably one of the first ones that I felt like was a winning idea that we went all in with. And even during my time at Stocks, you have winning ideas. Even right now, we're always coming up with winning ideas, but ideas don't make you an entrepreneur. Execution
Right.
does, right? So it's not what makes an idea winning. Everyone has great ideas. We all, if you're, I meet people all the time. We're creative, we're entrepreneurs, we're always coming up with solutions to problems. That's one component of how entrepreneurs come up with ideas. That's to answer your second part, is how you do it is because you face a challenge. You see a
Yeah.
problem, you are a solution-oriented individual. And if you are a solution-oriented individual, you're already thinking of how to solve this problem. But it's not the idea that drives a billion-dollar idea. It's the billion-dollar execution. And
Yes.
what is required for execution is, it's the work that
Yes.
goes in. There is no shortcut. It's hard work. That's the shortcut. And it takes a lot of pieces to go right. It's all the things. So to create a billion-dollar company, right, to do it all over, and I'm doing it again, there is that playbook. It's scalability in your idea. That's number one. You got to have a scalable idea if you want to go build a billion-dollar business. Number two, you got to have the right team to go do it. It's all the same things that you know, but it all has to work perfectly. It really
Yeah.
does. Your product has to work. It has to be something that's different and unique and has that secret sauce, that little magic that even though it might be a saturated market, what is that thing that nobody else has? What is that, that it doesn't have to be all of it. It just has to be that one component that you're doing that no one else is doing, that you can double down on to say, that's how I'm going to win the customer, right? So your product has to be amazing, but it has to have that unique value proposition that is not existent in the marketplace. You can
Yes.
go build a really large business in a saturated market, and it doesn't have to be fully novel, but what is that edge that your company or your product is bringing? That's one of the components. That team, as I mentioned, huge component of it. So we did not, I mean, we had a winning team. We clearly had a winning team, but we didn't come from a background of, now the team that we've built, again, it's a founding team that has experience, right? We've done it before, we could do it again. But first time around, I mean, how did we do it? It was because there was this relentless, like, it wasn't just passion. It was that ability to show up at all. It was a winning mindset. So you have to find individuals that have that same level of like craziness as you do, that
Mm.
want to win as much as you do, that just want to see the product through as much as you do. And that amount of passion, and you put that in an ecosystem of like super type A doers, it's chaotic and it's crazy, but you need that to go build a billion-dollar company, right? And that's why there's so many great successful companies and why these teams go at it again, like PayPal Mafia, right? That's like one beautiful example in tech that ended up creating, every single one of that founding team ended up creating billions of dollars of companies out of that one team. It's because it's that value system, it's that mindset, and they were able to piece that DNA together. And when you spend time with those kinds of individuals, it's that osmosis of that DNA. And I believe that companies are like organisms, their bodies, they have DNA, like they have heart and soul and minds, and so that DNA is like what you're creating. And that's what you need those people around it to really create what that organization is. And we created a winning culture. Like that was like a huge part of it. And
Well,
then lastly,
yeah.
before you ask me the thing, the last component, once you have the idea, you have the team, you've got the product, you've also got to be able to take it to market. So you've got to be able to go find your customer, and you've got to be able to have a winning sales approach too. I find so often so many companies and brilliant tech founders will build the most incredible ideas, unique products, but they can't bring it to market. They don't know how to sell, or they don't know how to actually meet their customer where they're at. That's sales execution. Revenue is what solves all problems to go get to $1 billion company. And so that is what I would say is that last component. It's not the investment. It's not the dollars. That's the first thing that people think. It's the dollars that, or you raise capital so you can go do that. We raised capital because we had a winning culture of execution and revenue that backed those dollars. So if your company is scaling and you're growing revenue and you're growing sales, you are not going to have problems finding investors to invest in your business. So it's not the dollars. And I think that's the first component that people think of. It's all of those pieces and a little bit of luck. You got to have market timing and all of that too. And I do believe you got to have good karma, and the luck matters too. So I do feel really grateful for all of it all working out together.
Well, it really begs the question, because this is the challenge that so many entrepreneurs hit, say they're high 6, 7, mid 7, going to 8. Even at 8, it's like, where do you find those people and how do you pick those people to be a winning team? And I see so many people, maybe they get to early 7 figures and they're like, okay, now it's time to replace myself. And they'll bring in a CEO, and they don't know how to vet, or they don't know how to pick the right person. And they bring them on in 6 months, 8 months, 12 months, 18 months, that person's gone because they didn't really fit the culture. They didn't have that drive that the founder did. So how do you guys find and pick those people?
It's an art and a science and magic and all the things, but building a team is such a huge part of growing. Like I spend most of my time in finding and recruiting talent, team, supporting our team. Like my job as a CEO is only to support my team and to help them scale and grow. Like your team is everything. And finding these individuals is primarily, I would say, through your network is the first place that I go. So, my board, my investors, somebody that I do believe that great people have great reputations. So when you're looking for that person and you're kind of putting out this profile of right now I'm looking for a head of partnerships, and that's an open role that I have right now. This role is not going to come from, it could come from Indeed, or it could come from my hiring manager of this applicant that's applied. But that's not where I've found success in finding some of these key roles for us. How I found it is I've told my board, I've told my investors, I've told people, I'm like, this is the kind of profile that I'm looking for. This is who I'm looking for. Who do you know in your network? And when somebody advocates for another person, that tells me something, that they're worthy of that conversation. Most successful people that I want to hire aren't actually looking for the job that I want to offer them. I'm poaching them. Yes. Right. And so I'm trying to go find this individual, and I am trying to find the individual that has experience. So the first time around, I feel like, I was learning, and it was really scrappy, and it was like a friend of a friend. And that took me a lot of failures in that hiring process, trying to fit a person into the job description, versus now I'm like, here's the job description. Let me go find that perfect fit for that job description, versus trying to fit the role for that person that's in front of me. Yeah. And so and you have to pay for that person too. And so, and it comes in two ways. Either you're bringing them in through paying them market salary. And if you can't do market salary, then how are you incentivizing this person's success? Right. And there's so many creative ways for incentive compensation, as well as in equity, as well as in just market salary, like all of the things and people want to be part of winning things. Yeah. And so you want to go find those people, and they are out there. There's plenty of us out there, and there are plenty of people that want to go work in a winning culture. And so I do think that it's hiring slow for sure, and finding that right fit. And then once they're there, it should be a very quick, either they're going to be in or not. You're going to very quickly understand. We do a lot of vetting up front so that we don't have to fail on hires, but we're going to fail. We're going to fail sometimes. And the reason why I'm failing, or if somebody fails, it's just not that DNA mashup. People will say, oh yes, I love to work in a fast and quick environment. I'm happy to do blah, 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 blah. But when it actually comes time to rolling up the sleeves, you're either on the team or you're not, right? Yeah. And so when we identify that, you can pretty much identify that pretty quickly. And that's when you have to cut it fast.
Yeah.
And that took me so long in my first kind of journey as a CEO to, it's hard to make some of those decisions, but it cost me so much in the long run. And so it is important to fire fast as well. And it's part of building a winning team, right? It's like, well, you got to have the players, just like, in sports, right?
Yeah.
Players are going to make it. They're making the cut. They're making first draft. They're putting in the effort. They're putting in the work, and it has to be beneficial to the whole team because it's the championship that the team is after, and it's not about the individual. And so that's kind of how I approach it, is like building a sports team, and we're A players. So
That's a really good analogy, because I think what a lot of people aren't thinking about is that, oh, maybe these individuals that are on the team now will get us through this phase, but another phase, they may not be the right individuals for the next phase of a business. Same with a sports team. A sports team, you have to mix up, like, football. Sometimes it's the quarterback or the defense that you have to change up, and you have to do that quite regularly. And in business, we don't think like that, because a lot of us start business to make money and then check out of life and then live the easy life, and the business runs, and we do, right? But, what you're talking about is building a winning team, and the science behind like building a winning sports team is very similar to that team that you need to build as well. Suneera, I like to ask this question. I'm going to put you on the spot here for our guests. It's, if you were going to break the say the Stax, the years at Stax, was a book, and you were going to break it down into chapters. What chapters would they be, and what would you call them?
Oh God, that's a really big question on
I
breaking
know, I
down
know, I know.
each of my phases.
Just make it 3 or 4 chapters or so. We don't have to be.
I would say, I mean, there's like I would say it's pretty similar to any startup book, right? Like it's the like product market fit and like the early journey stage where it's like we're throwing every piece of spaghetti on the wall. We're everything to everyone. We're trying to get revenue. We're trying to get traction. It's like the early startup phase. And then you're like, you hit your stride, which is this middle phase. And you're like, okay, I'm trying to figure out the machine phase and building the machine phase. And then it's the scale phase. So like, that's what I would say is like, I would break that into maybe 3 chapters as a company for, but as an individual, I would say that also maybe pairs of like, I feel like I've learned so much in like, I didn't go to CEO school. That's something I always share, right? That I was a first time founder, entrepreneur. And I doubted myself along the way. I feel like I had to fall on my chin so hard at every step, getting up and learning from my own mistakes. And I wish, which I get to do now, is like learn from experience and get to do it again from experience. So God, it was just a ton of just, if I were to like sum up this whole book, it's like a series of like falling and getting up and just every day showing up. So like and the book hasn't closed yet. So one part of the chapter is now done, and now there's a CEO in place, and I'm so excited for the scale beyond where I was able to I was done at that 400 employee mark and where we took it to, but it's now living on its own because it's a living, breathing organism. Like it's on its own now. Like I grew the baby, and now it's like off to, it's post college, and now it's in life, and now it's in its like second stage. So, that's how I feel about that. And now I get to like do it again in this like next phase. So I think I don't know if it's a book. I think it's the journey. And I think that that's what is so interesting that I felt like I used to chase was, and we all do. So as entrepreneurs, we're like, here's this milestone, and here's the next chapter, or here's the next stage, and here's the next piece. When like, honestly, if I look back and like every successful company that's like made it is they just didn't give up. Like they found a way to stay alive another day and keep
Yeah.
growing. It's just a series of time until you're like, okay, now is the perfect time between like market and when to get out, right? Like that's what happened. But I think the story is still being written. And so my story with Stax is complete. But I think my journey as an entrepreneur, that was just chapter 1. And that's
Yeah.
what is really exciting, is like, that's just chapter 1. And I got to exit, and I took, some time off, and, was I going to retire? What was next? Like, what did I want my life to be about? And I realized that I am that person that has ideas and sees problems and wants to solve problems. And that's exactly why, we've started Worth and what we're building again, because I saw such a void in the marketplace. There are so many businesses that we were onboarding, And I have so many friends in financial services because of my network, and we're all onboarding small businesses differently. And there's no standardization of how we can view a business's credit worth, whether it was payments, which what I was in, or lending, or banking, or any sort of onboarding. I can open up my Apple phone right now as a person, Chris. As you know, you can open up your phone, sign up for an Apple credit card, go down the street to Starbucks and take a transaction. But if you
Yeah.
did that for Chris's LLC, it stops. And it's like 3 years worth of tax returns, your P&L, your firstborn, everything that you need to know. And every institution does is different because no one has built anything to look at the 360 profile of a business instantly.
Yeah.
And so that was something like, why doesn't it exist? Because there's no business credit worth. There's no business credit score that's standardized. So let's go build it. Here's this grand idea, not novel. We have a personal credit score. Why doesn't this exist? And then you go start putting solutions around it. And then you can't eat, sleep, and breathe again. And you're like, oh my God, I got to go solve this thing. And I got to go talk to this person and validate this and validate that idea. So you go through that cycle again. And here we are a year later after launch. Funding is done and scaling is happening, and 25 large customers and FinTech's already onboarded. And now it's like the scale part of like the second baby. And so
Yeah.
you could do it again.
That's incredible. And you're on your way to build the second billion-dollar company. I'm curious, are there any other women that built $2 billion companies?
Oh, I don't know. I
You might be the
hope,
first. You
oh my goodness. I hope I'm not the first. That's not, that's, I hope there are more women that have built multiple billion-dollar companies.
yeah.
However, I'm not sure of that answer. I do believe that I think Kendra Scott had shared it in an interview. I think there's 22 women or 25 women that have, as a founder, built and sold billion-dollar companies. So it's a very small group of women that have done so. So you
Right.
might be right. There might not be multiple ones. Maybe I don't know how to look it up. We'll go look it up. Let's ask
I'll look it
GPT.
up. I already put it on my
Yeah.
list because
Okay, cool.
I actually want to interview more ladies. We've interviewed Janet Bryant Halleroyd, first Black
Yes,
woman to build a
incredible.
billion-dollar
Yes.
company.
Hmm.
Amazing, amazing, amazing. But everybody else is usually men that come around. So I definitely want to find some more women to interview. And this goes, I want to talk about CEO School, your podcast, and CEO School, your community. I have a community myself as well. I love communities and helping entrepreneurs grow. But what I've always said for any ladies that are entrepreneurs and they tell me they want to build a community, I'm like, build one for women because there's such a need for the women that are out there building and growing companies. And I actually wrote an article about this like a while back, but I really admire women that are going out there and tackling this endeavor of building even just a seven-figure company or a six-figure company because it's a bit of a different fight. I think you guys have a different fight than we do as men in the business
100%.
world.
It's not an I
Yeah.
think. It is a different fight. It's
Yeah.
not the same fight at all. It's a different world.
Yes. Yeah. And I'm curious about, first off, we're going to cut this part out. How much time do we have left?
We have 5.
Okay, good. All right, we're going to start right back now. Yes, because most people don't understand this. It's just like they go out and they do business, and most guys, and we're doing it on our own. But when you talk to women or you have female entrepreneur friends, I have a girlfriend I'm in a relationship with. She has an online company as well. There's a whole nother world that we don't see, right? And it's so empowering for you guys to come together, you ladies to come together and support one another through that. But I'm curious, like, what can you share to help us understand more about the fight that you guys have versus the fight that we have?
Yeah, I would say that, I mean, it is different, right? I mean, we've just, as women, have just come into the workforce. It's been less than 100 years that we've been working, right,
Yeah.
alongside men. So the business world has not been designed for us. And so we are playing we're like different like players in a game that wasn't designed for us. Then from an entrepreneurship standpoint, right, we are the newest segment of entrepreneurs. And
Yeah.
so even building businesses, we are the newest segment of entrepreneurs. However, what's really interesting and where I think everyone needs to pay attention, it's not just about the talk about supporting women. Why we need to pay attention in business in every category is because the fastest growing segment of entrepreneurship and business owners is actually women, right? And so
Mm.
we're 50% now. We've actually exceeded men. And I was just at South by Southwest for a panel with Inc. where they shared some of these stats. And I'm sure we can, I'm going to go look them up so I can share them more precisely. But over 50% of businesses now that are started by women. And so it is almost 50-50 in an entirety of ownership
Wow.
in
Yeah.
business. And so if you are not paying attention to women business owners, you're completely losing out for all your segments. It doesn't matter whether you're a woman or a man or anything else, like whoever you're supporting, you're just missing out on an entire subset of opportunity. And so we should be paid attention to. The challenge, why it's different is one, so we're starting businesses, but our challenge right now is we're not scaling them fast enough. And so women are less than 2% of female founders have broken 1 million in revenue. So we're starting businesses, but the growth of scale is less. And men are, just more likely to exceed those milestones a lot faster. And that is in part due to the fact that there is that lack of funding. There is that lack of support. There is that lack of resources for scale. And resources don't even have to be paid resources. What you were talking about of communities and support, men have been doing business for so long on golf courses and through a network. Like, you need a network to do business with. Women are now we're building our network, right? And so I do think that it's it's just a different vantage point that we've now started in. I don't believe that we'll be far back, because I do think that the progress that we're making is so it's meaningful, it's fast, and more companies like ours that will continue to succeed will allow more opportunities for women. But also, when you look at corporations and you look at how many women are at the top, right? So we do have a challenge with even women at the top of these companies. And I think it's all of those things that have to break the ecosystem and to change the way it's done. It's still going to be, I think there's a lot of studies, and it's like, 200 years still left in progress to have equality when it comes to equal pay, when it comes to women in leadership. So I think it's all of those things actually turning it into action. But it is a different game. And I can share a million examples. Like, we won't have time today, but there is sexism, and without us knowing, conscious and unconscious, right? And it's and whether and you know what, when I say that, we need men as allies. So we don't think, like, we're not the feminists that it's like men are greater than or like women are greater than men. No, it's just we just want an opportunity to play. Like, we want to play and we want to be taken seriously, and we need to support more women in business to do deals with as well. And so we kind of all have to be conscious of that ecosystem. And we're also all parents now, right? And so I'm a girl mom, and I want my daughters to have every opportunity in whatever they want to be and never like be held back. We haven't even had a woman, as in leadership in our country yet, right? And so a lot still has to change. And so it's also easy for men I've seen it where we kind of dismiss it, but just take a look and see our own unconscious settings and how we think about things and what we can do to progress, not just for our businesses, which will help our pockets. There's all these untapped markets, but even for our daughters and our sisters and our communities, like, this is important.
Yeah, I agree completely. And I personally think the bigger challenge is finding the unconscious habits of sexism, and you're not even realizing that you're doing it. And I've recognized that in myself just unconsciously throughout the years. I'm like, oh my God, like, that was just a pattern that I learned when I picked up when I was a kid from somebody somewhere somehow. And I acted in that way, and I was not aware of it. And then I go and fix it. But, making us more helping guys out there become more aware of it, because it's so valuable to bring women's viewpoints into our own businesses and understanding, just like those guys that told you it was a stupid idea to create a payment program for credit card processing, and now who's laughing? So, all right, I want to talk to you more. Hopefully we can have you on the podcast again. I'm doing 100 of these episodes. We're at episode 30. We've got another 70 more to go. So I want to get you back on the show so we have more to talk about. I've got more notes here, and I have to, but we can't talk about them today. So let's wrap up there. Any place you want to send the listeners to if they want to follow along learn more about what you got going on and all the good things.
I loved this conversation, Chris. You're fantastic, and I think it's really awesome what you're doing. And thank you so much for having me today. And for anyone that wants to find me, you could find me everywhere online. Suneera Madhani, that's Suneera Madhani, Madhani. You can find me on Instagram. You can find me on LinkedIn. You can find me everywhere. And I hope you check out what we're building at Worth, and it'll all be linked through my profile. So go check that out. If you are a business owner, we'd love to support your next journey. And just follow along. Like, that's it. So check us out online. And I have a podcast called CEO School. So if you enjoyed today's conversation, I get to do this with amazing women. And so check out the podcast at CEO School on any of your networks as well.
Amazing. Love it. Suneera, thank you so much for coming on the show. Listeners, thank you guys for tuning in once again. And we'll see you on the next episode. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye, Chris.
If you like what you're hearing and make sure you don't want to miss any of these tips, please subscribe, leave us a review, and share with your friends. See you on the next episode.